Okay, welcome everyone to the Communication and Media Studies Career Day, a collaboration between the Career Center and the Communication and Media Studies Department. I'm Lisa Hansinger, and I'm an Associate Director in the Career Center. Throughout the day today, we've invited a variety of alumni to join us for conversations about their careers so that we can give you insight into different career paths, industries, and hopefully to get some advice on how to enter and really thrive and succeed in these fields. As I said, these sessions will all be recorded, and our guest this morning is Claire Fitzgerald. Welcome,
Hey,
Claire.
hey, thanks so much for having me.
Sure. I'm going to read a little bio about Claire, and then I'll be asking her some questions. So, students, if you do have questions, follow-up questions, or clarifying questions, you are welcome to put them in the chat, or you are also welcome to raise your hand. This is really designed to support your learning and understanding of Claire's career path and choices. So we want to make it valuable to you. Claire Fitzgerald graduated summa cum laude from SJU in May 2021 with a double major in communications and Spanish and a minor in graphic design. Claire developed many skills as a student through a variety of communication-related experiences, including social media director for AES Builders and web developer and blogger for KE Hardware. In addition, she served as a hot host for 3 years, as well as the CEO, very impressive, Claire, for SJ Brew, a student-driven fair trade and organic coffee company during its launch in spring of 2021. Claire currently works for Advanced Solutions International in Alexandria, Virginia, as a marketing communication coordinator and describes herself as an experienced multimedia digital content creator, passionate about using digital storytelling to engage audiences and humanize subjects. Very cool. Please welcome Claire virtually back to Hawk Hill.
Thanks so much.
Sure. I love your quote there, Claire. Very cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I developed that in like one of my communications classes where I don't know if you have all taken the web design class, but we worked a lot on sort of our personal branding and portfolio. So that's where that came from.
Amazing. So again, I'm going to be asking Claire a list of questions. Feel free to write any questions that you have, follow up, clarifying in the chat box, and we will have a dedicated Q&A session at the end. Claire, let's start with you describing your current role, your responsibilities, and just generally what a typical day might look for you.
Sure. So I work, as you mentioned, at Advanced Solutions International, which doesn't really tell you anything about the company, but ASI has a few offices around the world, but I technically work out of the Alexandria one, but I work fully remotely, except we have a few conferences and I'll go in person to those. But ASI, we're a software company and all of our clients are either associations, nonprofits, or unions. So it's kind of nice having a lot of mission-driven clients. But our different software products in their different ways, their goal is to help engage your members. So whether that's getting them to come to your events, or if you're a nonprofit, getting them to donate, things like that. So that's what ASI as a whole does. But for myself, personally, I work in the marketing department. There's, I think, 5 full-time people in my department, and then we have a few contractors who do like some copywriting and things as needed. And my role is the marketing communications specialist. So my position falls into my tasks fall into 4 main categories. And I'll go into each of these, but there's email marketing, social media marketing, the blog, and graphic design, just assorted tasks for that. So for email marketing, a lot of our marketing is event-based, trying to get people to show up to like an overview demo of our product, or for prospects, we'll hold like educational seminars to like get their emails to market to them and just to get ourselves on their radar, show some thought leadership. So when events come in, I'll get a description and I'll do the copywriting of the email. So the inner content as well as the subject line and preview, and running tests on those to try to see what resonates with people better in the future. And I also coordinate the graphics for those as well and scheduling those out to our lists. So that's in a nutshell my email marketing, which just based on the volume of events and emails we send out, that's the bulk of my job. But then the other ones for social media, I fully handle our calendar. So I'll plan out posts, write the captions, create any graphics or videos for those as well. And wish I had a bit more time to dedicate to that. Would love to put some more videos on there, but our email volume is pretty high. So that's what we're working with right now. And then there's also for the blog, I don't write for our blog, but I'll do the layout and the graphics for that. We use HubSpot for our blog. So I'll lay it out in there. And then, like I mentioned, graphic design, just sort of assorted tasks here and there. Like we need an image for every single event we have to put on our website. So assorted things like that. And that, yeah, that about sums up my job responsibilities, but a normal day might be working on a set of email invites for a product overview webinar. So we'll send out like 2 sets of those, one for North America clients or prospects rather, one for Europe. So I'll coordinate those sets, and then I might work on laying out a blog, getting graphics for that, and a social post or 2. That would actually be a pretty packed day for me if I could get through all of that. So yeah, that's an overview of what I do. I think you're on mute, Lisa.
Still muted. I was trying not to interrupt you, but thank you for that overview. So kind of from our students' point of view, we're wondering like how you decided or how you knew that this career path was something that you were interested in pursuing, and was there anything that contributed to that decision, like maybe experiences you had or exposure you had to the field? Like what was it that led you to that point?
Yeah, so for me, it started in high school. I took some digital media classes, like they were just called digital media, and they had photo and graphic design, and I really liked those. I just enjoyed that kind of content creation. So that's what led to me majoring in communications at St. Joe's. And I ended up taking up a graphic design minor. That was sort of my favorite between like photo, video, and graphic design. I like those 3, but that one was my favorite. So that's why I minored. And initially, when I graduated, I was just looking at graphic design jobs because I thought I really like these classes. So that would be a good job for me. And I was sort of having trouble with that. And I got to the point where I realized I think I don't quite have the portfolio fleshed out right now to solely dedicate to graphic design. So I could have like worked on building that up, but I decided to pivot in my job search instead to look for sort of like marketing generalist or communications specialists, those sorts of jobs that would still incorporate some digital media content creation, because that's what I enjoy, but not be just specifically graphic design. And that worked out. I got a job offer right after that, after switching over, but it works out because I actually enjoy like being able to have different, like work through different media, not just design, even though within that can have all kinds of things, but I like being able to do some copywriting, some video, like some editing and different things. So it kind of worked out that I didn't initially get those roles. And now I kind of like having that variety in my day. So yeah.
Great. That was going to be my follow-up question is, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
But you answered that. Yeah. Because sometimes what you think is going to make you happy or be satisfying career-wise, you actually do land and then go, oh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So
right. And
you
I do
skip that step.
when I was like looking at job descriptions for graphic design jobs, just based on like my personal experience with it, it's like, I don't know, I feel like I might be a little bit out of my element, which you don't need to hit every single job requirement on the descriptions. I was told that many times by career counselors, but I remember reading through and thinking, I'd rather have like a variety of things. And not sure if I want that to be like the only thing I do. So yeah, it worked out.
Cool. Thank you. Um, okay. My next question is, you described your company as, fairly large international. What would be a typical career path for sort of an entry level associate in your organization? Or is that what you have?
Yeah, my job, I mean, I think on the application it called for 2 or 3 years of experience, and if I like sort of cobbled together some internship things, I could maybe get up to like a year, but really did not have as much as they were asking for specifically. So just as a note, don't let that always discourage you um, if it's like only asking for a few years. But so our department's pretty small, and I can't speak to other departments how that structure works exactly, but people tend to stay at ASI for a while, which seems like a good sign that people like it. So there's not a ton of movement in terms of, like this person left, I'll bump up and take her spot.
Mm,
um, but usually you'll have a yearly performance review, and at that point that might be where you can talk with your boss about raises or maybe a title change if you're taking on a few extra responsibilities or if you've been going above and beyond. But I will, for my boss, she started out in my position and then at one point actually moved to doing events instead, which is this whole other thing, but still within marketing. And then she moved up to be a manager, where she was uh, sort of taking a step back, still being involved with everyday things, but managing the calendar, like scheduling out our events, making sure nothing overlapped, making sure our communications plans didn't overlap too much. And then now she works as the director of marketing, and she takes another step back, looking at like longer term strategies, as opposed to like myself, who I'm writing the emails that like send out every single day. She's looking at like what big plans can we work on, like overarching strategies. So that's sort of what a career path in this at my company could look like.
and when did you start there? Like, how long have you been there?
I started in October 2021, so about a year and a half now.
A year and a half. Okay.
So
Very
yeah,
good.
I've got a good amount of time under my belt, but it's kind of funny because most people have been here for a while, so it feels comparatively very short, but people are really welcoming, so it worked out fine.
Nice. Okay. Um, so kind of getting a little bit of personal insight about, the role, your day, like what do you enjoy the most about it? I heard variety, a few unexpected things, and what is something you wish you could change?
Okay, yeah. So I already touched on the variety, but what I just
Mhm.
like is being able to like be creative in the job, whether that's through like creating videos or even just like email headers. Like I design every single one of those. So it's kind of a nice like little creative break. Um, so I like the variety and the different types of content creation that I get to do. For something changing something within my job, this isn't necessarily how all marketing jobs should go, but I think my workload is like deadlines are pretty tight. And I am getting better at like being open and honest with my boss about when I have a lot going on. But I do just wish I had more time to dedicate. Like I would love to get more videos up on our social media, um, or like clean out our contact database for email more frequently. So I think, this is kind of specific to my department, but
Mhm.
um, would love if I could like pass off a few things to some other people to like really dig into some other stuff. But I think as long as I'm honest with my boss about my workload and like what I can handle, then she understands that, I would like to put in more time to things. It's not that I'm just like slacking off or something. So uh,
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
yeah, it's
Um,
not unique to my job,
no,
certainly.
no. I mean, this isn't one of my official questions, but I'm wondering how you manage that, especially if you're working remotely. Like, do you
Mhm.
do you keep within a certain time frame? Because if it's not like, oh, I'm done with my work for the day, how do you tend to manage? Because it could be like, oh, it's 5 o'clock. Oh, now it's 5:30. Now it's 6 o'clock, and I'm still not
Yeah.
ever really done.
Hmm. Yeah, so I have been surprisingly pretty good at sticking to 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with like a 1 hour lunch in there at some point. That's what my contract said, but I know people in my department, they usually start a little bit later, but they'll stay on a little bit later. And I would rather, not really a morning person, but I'd rather take off sooner in the evening to be done with work. But I found it, I can understand how some people wouldn't like that rigid structure and they would prefer flexibility. But for me, it really works because once I'm off work, like I'm off work. In college, I had a lot of trouble with, like you could be doing your homework at like 1 a.m. or so. It could be like
Mhm.
any time. So with this like structure, it feels very healthy for me being able to stop at that time. And I do sometimes, like if we have something that we have to get out like the next day, I'll put in some time. I just try to at least somehow make my boss aware of that since I'm salaried, so I don't get overtime pay if I put in extra time. Um, but yeah, so that's how I handle like the schedule of my day. And then um, we also, just for keeping on track with tasks, we'll meet every Monday as a team and we'll go over everything everyone's working on this week. So this will be, I mean, there's not that many of us, there's like five. So it's only a half an hour meeting, but everyone will go through all of the tasks they're working on for that week, which is a good time to, if like ask other people if you have questions or if they're a roadblock on something. But then also on top of that, everyone will give a personal good news and a professional good news.
Oh, that's
So
fun.
since we work remotely, it kind of gives me little like tidbits into people's lives to try to meet them a little, or like know them a little bit better. So that's nice. And then every day, besides Monday, we'll have a daily huddle. So it's like a 10-minute meeting. We'll just go through everyone will say their three main tasks for the day, which for me is helpful because then I like saying it out loud that I'm going to do something. It's like, oh, it helps me work like even more efficiently. Because I hate having the next day say I'm still working on this, even though it's not
Yeah,
actually a big
right.
deal, but it keeps me on track nicely. So
Little accountability.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're really handling I guess, the transition from being a student to being a full-time remote employee pretty well.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
I guess
mean,
you started during
yeah,
COVID-ish.
I think that helped because my March 2020 was my junior year. So that was all remote. And then my senior year was like that sort of hybrid in between
Hmm.
year. So it wasn't a super big transition, but I will say that I don't think I connect as much with my coworkers as some other people might, although there are ways to do that virtually. We just kind of don't. But we have that Monday meeting where you can get ideas,
Sure.
you can talk with people and everything.
Is the company based in Alexandria?
So there's a few
Or,
different offices. There's Alexandria, Austin, a few people in London, and then some people in Australia as well. But
oh, wow.
I think most people are based out of Austin, and then the people who work out of the Alexandria office are kind of like all across the East Coast, but mostly in that area.
Okay. And how about the five on your team?
We've got three Alexandria area people. Myself, I live outside Baltimore, and then John is up in Boston. So
Okay.
I've never met him in
Wow.
person.
So
Um,
that's all new, post-COVID.
yeah.
Um, so, but students, when you're looking at careers, know that this is how they look now. Maybe you're the one in Boston, and the rest of your team's in outside of Baltimore, or vice versa.
Yeah.
So,
So for
no, that's
me,
very.
I really like it just because it takes out all the commute time, so I just get that time back to myself.
Hmm.
But I know some people like going in, being able to have more interaction. So it depends on you and your work style. But for me, I really like remote, at least for now.
Sure. Yep. I know in the class that's attending today that Scott and I facilitate, we've taken the focus to, it's a career assessment. And unlike the popular theory that it tells you what to be, the goal is really for you to learn about yourself, your
Mm-hmm.
preferences, your work style, that kind of thing. And that's one of the great things, about knowing about yourself is, is this a good fit for me? If it's 100% remote.
Yeah.
There's positives and negatives to everything. It's just what
Yeah.
suits you.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
wow, thanks for sharing all that.
Sure.
So I don't know if this question, if it's what you just shared falls in this category or not, but what was like the biggest surprise to you when you started your career, either
Um,
work-wise or schedule, you
yeah,
know?
I think one thing, and this is a little funny to say, but I was almost surprised at how much people trusted how much people trusted me so quickly with my ideas and like just being on board with letting me take over things. Like I'll still send out my emails for review. I'm not sure how much people actually look at them, but I still like there's checks and balances, so that for the most part people are able to look at what I'm working on. But um, I think it's just been nice for like my own confidence to see that people are like ready to like put some trust in me and ask for my ideas even though I'm very new in my career. And it's also pushed me to like know what I'm talking about more, like keep up better on best practices because people trust me and I want to give them a reason to. So that's a
Oh,
that's been
amazing.
a pleasant surprise. And yeah, sometimes they'll be like, oh,
Yeah,
we're looking for your expertise. And I'm like, oh,
I
okay.
have that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, no, that's great. That really speaks to they trusted you when they wrote your resume,
Yeah,
interviewed, throughout that whole process. You're really building that professional relationship. So
right.
awesome. I want to shift gears a little bit to focus on possible actions that students could take. Um, to sort of gear themselves for potentially a career like yours.
Hmm.
And again, students, if you do have questions, I don't see any in the chat or in the question feature, but if you do have some, feel free to pop them in there. Um, and we'll talk about internships in a minute, but I'm wondering initially what couple of experiences, maybe 2 to 3, that
Hmm.
you feel like were either beneficial to you, or ones maybe that you didn't engage in while you were in college that you could you clearly did a lot when you were here, Claire. But what are a couple things that would be beneficial for students to participate in now that would support their future success?
Right. I think one thing is whatever clubs and organizations you're already in, seeing if there's like a leadership role you can take on, or depending on what you're looking to go into, maybe like volunteer if you can run their social media or design their flyers or come up with like some sort of, I don't know, a marketing plan, or it could be whatever. I mean, if you're doing free work, they're probably going to take it. And like you're in college, people expect clubs and organizations to be on your resume. Like that's where you are in your career path, so that makes sense. um, I worked with SJ Brew, and for my communications capstone, I kind of killed two birds with one stone. I made a branding kit for SJ Brew. And actually my boss who interviewed me, like she loved that, even though it was for like a university based thing, not like an official internship at a big company or something, but like she could see the thought that I put into it. um and so yeah, don't be afraid to like volunteer for like, just you're already involved in those clubs, see what you can do within them. Especially if you're looking if you'll be building up a portfolio, if that makes sense for your resume, like see where you can fill in gaps there with stuff you're already involved in. So that's one big one. And then something I found helpful, and this was a like tip from the Career Center, but doing informational interviews with people who are either in your field, or if you're not sure yet what your field is, trying to figure that out. So you'll and I can talk about how you would like find these people, but you'll connect with someone and ask them what's over coffee or over Zoom, like what's your daily job like, what do you like, what don't you like, how'd you get into it, like do you have any tips for my resume, things like that. So I did those to get an idea of how to, that was when I was looking for graphic design. I asked about, should I look into grad school, like do graphic designers usually do another program. One of them actually looked through my portfolio with me and gave me some tips to make it better. So that was helpful for my job search, which I didn't end up going into graphic design, but that helped my portfolio like at large. And that can also help if you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Um, you can see what a day in the life is like, and if that sounds interesting to you. So that could start with people you know, or there's like creepy ways to find people on LinkedIn, like filtering by alumni and things like that. So I would definitely encourage you to do that, because that helps you get information, but it also puts you on their radar. If they know about a job opening, they might be like, hey, this is at my company, you should check it out. um, Having a connection is always helpful. So those are two things that I think helped me, getting really involved in organizations, like, and then informational interviews.
Amazing. Thank you. You can work here when you're done with your current.
Yeah, no, I'm not a paid plug for the Career Center. I just went
Yeah,
there a
right.
lot.
But we appreciate the support. So I know in your bio, I had read a couple of, I think internships you did, AES Builders and
Hmm.
Get Your Hardware.
Yeah.
How did you land that first internship?
Yeah. So, well, KE Hardware is actually my dad's small business, so I'll talk to the other
That's
one.
okay.
Um, but with AES Builder and Home Improvements, so that was during spring of 2020, where everyone was
Mhm.
people hadn't really figured out virtual internships yet. Everyone was just sort of canceling or postponing theirs. But I looked through, like, on LinkedIn and ZipRecruiter and maybe Glassdoor. I forget exactly the ones I was looking on, but I know this one was on ZipRecruiter. And just based on this was for a social media coordinator, and they had never had a social media coordinator before. So I tailored my resume to, without lying, of course, but tailored it to what uh, they were looking for. And I talked a lot about the things I did for like the Fair Trade Club, or I designed t-shirts for like a retreat I went on at St. Joe's, things like that. So, and that really resonated with them, that I could show that. So I had an interview with them, and then I sent them a few social media examples. Like, I picked the post with the highest engagement to show them, from the Fair Trade Club. So I think tailoring your resume as much as you can to the job description is helpful. And wherever you can give concrete examples, like, if whether that's giving metrics like I increased by X%, or I did this weekly, or things like that, where you can be concrete about things, is always very helpful. So yeah, that was a summer internship, or I don't know if they call it an internship, but that was a summer position I had. So
Okay.
um,
And I'm glad you mentioned that the other experience you had was with your dad. Um, do you feel like I mean, I usually tell students, it's not as important that it's a family member. It's more about the focus of what you did for that.
yeah,
Can you comment on that it was a family member, and was it still a valuable experience? And if so, how did you communicate that?
yeah. So and I'm sure that was on my resume when I applied for the AES social media one. But I did some like minor things in WordPress editing, like laying out blog articles, and um, like fixing certain things on their website. So, like, yes, it was at my dad's company, but those are still like using WordPress, and I did like the teeniest bit of HTML. So those are skills that I can, like, those are skills and experiences I can still highlight, because I did them either way. So um, yeah, I think just you can, yeah, highlight whatever skills, whatever experiences you had, um, and must have must have resonated with them.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think, yeah, keeping the focus on what you actually develop, regardless of who owns the company or how you got the
Yeah,
job.
yeah, because
Um,
that's what you would do anyway for probably any position you're highlighting.
sure.
So
Yep, exactly. So yeah, thank you for once again confirming.
yeah.
So I'm going to shift a little bit to interviews,
Mhm,
knowing that some of our students will be interviewing either for internships or full-time roles coming up.
mhm.
Could you share a couple of tips, either from your personal experiences interviewing, or, from tips you may have picked up within your organization about, being on the other side, being an interviewer?
Right.
Um, from either perspective, just a couple of tips that you might have
Yeah, I
to
think
for success.
yeah, one, and this is cheesy, but it's just as much as you can, like be yourself in the interview. I gave an interview for Fair Trade America, which like I was involved at the Fair Trade Club in the at St. Joe's and involved with SJ Brew. So I had a lot of relevant experience and they were looking for a marketing coordinator. But I was so focused on, I don't know, like I think I was so focused on being like a polished version of myself and like seeming like such a go-getter, which I am, but I think I almost overdid it where it almost didn't, it seemed like a little fake almost. Like I said the word excited a little too much, and I think she laughed at one point. So, express your excitement for the job and don't stray away from that at all. But when they're interviewing you, they're not just asking for your experiences. They also want to see if you're a good fit with their team and everything. So, um, present yourself well, but present yourself is one thing I would say. I didn't get that position, but that's all right. It worked out. um, and yeah, it happens.
Hmm.
Another one, I would say have a few questions ready to go about the position or about the company. Um, Especially ones that show that you really read through the job description or you like looked into their website and are actually invested in this. um, it'll make you look better, and also they'll probably ask you at the end if you have any questions, which is a good opportunity to get a little more info and just show that you put in some effort. So that's another one. And then one more I'll give is, for me, it was really helpful to do practice interviews. I did those with the Career Center. I get nervous for job interviews, and so I ran through a full like practice interview. I gave the career counselor the job position I was going for, so she a little bit tailored it to that. Um, and it's funny because at the end she asked me, "How do you think that went?" And I was like, "I don't know, it was okay." And she was like, "That was great, you did fine." So it's helpful to have another person, whether it's a career counselor or just someone else, like listen to you. For me, it just helped me with my nerves. Um, so that, yeah, I found that really helpful.
Yeah, that we do recommend those. And in addition to having someone listen, it's an opportunity for you to actually articulate your answers, because
Yeah.
I think we all sort of have them here. Like, oh,
Hmm.
I know the answer to that. But if you've never actually verbalized it out loud,
Yeah.
sometimes when you do, it comes out differently than you planned, and you
Right. Yeah.
realize, oh,
Yeah, I'm someone who will think through things. Like I like to think through things beforehand. I know some people like to think through them out loud with other people, but for me, it worked to practice ahead of time. And there were certain, things I practiced in the interview that I said, not verbatim, I'm sure, but that they asked about and that I could just like I was already like fully ready for it, even if maybe the question wasn't exactly the same, but the experience worked for whatever question she asked. So yeah, I would highly recommend a practice interview. Even if you don't have a specific position, like interview coming up, if you wanna, I didn't do this, but if you wanna just get a like work on your comfort level with interviews, that's definitely works.
yeah, great. Um, let's see. So a couple more. We all know this, the SJU education includes, specific keystones like social justice and ethics. And you mentioned this a little bit in your intro about, working with nonprofits and so forth. How do you feel like specifically your SJU education has impacted the work you do and potentially decisions that you make?
Right. So when I was searching, I kept sort of a closer eye out for any like fair trade companies or like organizations that had to do with sustainability or things like that that I was or that I'm still passionate about. Um, and I came across this job, which we do work with a lot of nonprofits. Um, and at first I was hoping for like fair trade companies specifically, but it kind of it kind of works out because like with this job, I'm very good at I guess like keeping it to the 40 hours and this isn't necessarily a concern other people need to have, but I wonder if I had gotten that fair trade position, like if I would have put so much extra pressure on myself to do well because I was
Mm.
so passionate about it. And I'm not saying don't go after what like you're passionate about, but for me, I'm able to find outlets outside of work. So like I still have the energy to volunteer with fair trade organizations. So um, you might find that you have that outlet in your job, or you have it outside of work, or you have it in both. Um, so while we do work with nonprofits that have like really awesome missions, a lot of them, um, what's nice is that like this job has a good work-life balance, which I really appreciate, which leaves me with the energy to do stuff outside of work as well. So
Yeah, great. And I think that's again, something that the career assessments address,
mhm,
leisure interests, and it's important to look at, your future as a whole
mhm,
instead of like it all has to be wrapped up into this job, make a lot of money,
yeah,
be passionate about it, check all the boxes. It's
right,
like, well,
yeah,
you're still a whole person outside of your job.
yeah. And so for some people that it looks different for everyone. So this
Mhm.
right now works out really well for me. So
Yeah, I mean, no, thank you for sharing that perspective. I think that's really important for everyone to hear. You sort of already addressed the question I had on internships and how that
mhm,
could prepare you. So I'm going to skip that and
okay.
just move on to my last couple ones. And there's two, so you can think about those. I don't want to put you on the spot. What is something you wish someone had told you when you were in school? And is there a piece of advice that you would give to students specifically interested in a role like yours?
Okay, yeah. Um, I think for something that I wish I had heard when I was in school, um, and Lisa and Aaron, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it seems like marketing and communications jobs don't necessarily hire out as far as certain other positions. Like,
Mhm.
and I mentioned that specifically because I knew some people who going into their senior year had jobs lined up, and it was kind of frustrating. Um, and I'm not saying there aren't marketing and communications jobs that um, hire like a year out, but at least in my experience, that's not what I found. When I interviewed, I think from when I submitted my application to when I started was like a 3 or 4 week period. Um, so it's not always
Pretty
that
good.
turnaround. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but just keep in mind that like chug along, keep like doing what you can for your career development, but try not to just get wrapped up in comparing yourself to like what other people's like career development plans look like, because that comparison never really helped me feel any better.
That's so important. I'm so glad you shared that because there are definitely a couple of industries, and Erin knows this better than I do, accounting,
Yeah, that's when I
finance, that
yeah,
that really have like a year plus sometimes lead time.
yeah.
And for the rest of us, that's all of us in the room. It sort of feels like you're under pressure, like why don't I have a job and what,
Right.
but it's really I don't know why that is. It's like the
Yeah.
function of the industry, maybe.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, definitely different. And I guess for marketing, depending on the industry that you
Mhm.
work in as opposed to the role, there might be more lead time, but
Right.
Erin, you can comment on this too. My experience is that it's similar to what you experienced.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually also a comm major player, so I definitely relate to what you're saying. Like, it doesn't operate off of the same timeline that, other industries like accounting might, where they're doing their recruiting, maybe a year in advance for the following year or something like that. So that's definitely good to be mindful of and not comparing yourself.
Yeah. So keep doing what you can in the meantime, but don't
Yeah,
don't be too hard on yourself.
I apologize, students. I didn't introduce Erin Obetz. She is my colleague in the Career Development Center, whose voice you just heard, even if you didn't see her. And she works very closely with our employer partners in setting up career fairs and on-campus interviews and that sort of thing. So she does have sort of a bird's eye view of of some of those recruiting cycles. So,
Okay, thanks, Lisa.
mhm. Um,
Oh, so you
yeah,
asked
is
another
there any,
question.
yeah, is
So
there any sort of
I have like a
advice?
few bullet points down, but do you
Right.
find it more valuable if I like talk through those a little bit, or if we just open it up to questions and I send you those, or you let me know what
Um,
you think is best.
yeah,
I forget what
did
time this ends.
it ends at 11. So, do you have them written? Do you want to share your screen, or
Here, well, I'll just send them in the chat.
it's up to you.
Yeah,
Whatever you're more comfortable, if you want them on the screen or you'd rather
I'll
just talk
just
about
pop
them.
them out. The formatting might be a little odd, but you can figure it out. Um, so I'll go through these, but if any questions come in, I can switch to those
Sure.
instead. Um, but if you know what you're interested in, um, I would look through, even if it's not time, even if it doesn't make sense for you to start applying to things yet, just pop through those job descriptions and see if you can find any common themes, like maybe requirements you're missing, if you want to fill in those gaps somehow. Like you see that a lot of things are calling for video editing or whatever it might be. See where you might be able to, do like a YouTube course. It doesn't have to be like a semester-long internship. With content creation, there's so many ways to get like free training in it. And then if for your application it makes sense to have a portfolio, like for mine, I showed some like photo and video and design. I would recommend showing like your designs out in the world somehow, or at least making a mock-up. Like I had shirt designs, and at first I just had the flat design on my website, but it's harder for an interviewer to see like where it really got used, what it looked like, what its purpose was, just at a glance. That was a recommendation I got from an informational interview. So I put a link to, it's called Smart Mockups. It's a free website. It can put your design on like a piece of paper or whatever, just to make it a little less flat looking, your portfolio site, look a little engaging. Don't say you printed it if you didn't, but I found that helpful. And then if you're looking for a job that relates to design, sorry, I forgot that I didn't phrase this as nicely in my bullet point, but take a little bit of extra time in what the layout of your resume looks like. You don't necessarily have to do it in Adobe. You could do it in Canva, you could do it in Word. Just if you're saying graphic design is one of your skills, just make sure it's like very easy to read at a glance. It doesn't have to feature anything fancy, because you still want it to be read very quickly and easily. That's important. And then something I found helpful was HubSpot Academy courses. I did that I took one marketing class, which was digital marketing. And as a requirement, we had to do a few HubSpot Academy courses. At the time, they were free. I believe they still are. But it was nice to, on my resume, just show like certification in inbound marketing, certification in email marketing. So I think they are like 6 or 8 hour courses that you'll go through, and you take an exam at the end that you can retake if needed. And it's not, it's just taking the exam online. So those are nice, like kind of bulking up your resume, to show like a nice official certification. And my boss really liked that in my interview. So those are, you asked for one piece of advice, but there's a few different ones I had.
Yeah, those are great. And I mean, I think, like you said, your boss kind of tuned into those certifications, but as another sort of positive, it shows like your initiative, motivation to get more
Yeah.
information about the field. You're not just resting, oh, I have a degree, period.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the
Yeah.
actual skill plus the initiative that you're showing
Yeah.
to,
Oh, and
to get it.
one last other quick thing. Sorry. If
Yeah.
something I found helpful is whenever I was feeling overwhelmed or like didn't know what next steps to take, again, not a paid plug, but I always just made a career or an appointment at the career center, and I would usually leave feeling better about things and also having a few action steps to take. So if you're feeling a little lost, I would maybe talk with the professor, talk with someone in the career center, to help you figure out where to go next or take a look at what you're working on. So yeah.
Nice. I will pay you later, Claire. Thank you.
Sounds great.
No, I'm kidding. And you know what? I'll just say for everyone's benefit, we really just do a lot of listening. I think most times people know what they want, but maybe they don't know the steps to take to get there,
Yeah.
or, there's something holding them back. So we're just really here to support, and we do meet with students and alumni. I know I've mentioned that in our 290 class, but for everybody on the call, we do meet regularly with alumni after your graduation for, job change, whatever it might be. I don't see any questions, but students, I'm going to open it up so that you have the opportunity to either ask questions verbally if you want to raise your hand, or if you want to put them in the chat, up to you. I don't see any. I have a question, of course, not printed. I'm wondering, when it comes to a resume, Claire,
Yeah.
if people that are in like a field like yours, do they look for something sort of more creative? Does that make a difference if there's color, or, formatted kind of like a newspaper article? I've seen those. Or is like a standard black and white traditional resume? Is it more about the content, I guess, is what I'm asking.
So I think like focus on content first, but then, if you're applying to like a design agency or like a marketing agency, they might just want to see something that'll catch their eye a little bit more. Or just in general, if you're like, if you put a little bit of extra effort into the design, it might help with just helping your resume stick out a bit. I can, if it helps, I think I have it pulled up. I'll quickly share, because I know it's like 1 minute left, what my resume looked like.
We get that question a lot from comm students.
Yeah.
If it should be more traditional or more, oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so with mine, I tried to have like a design element on the left, but still like overall just wanted it to be very easy to read. And sometimes I don't remember the name for these, but they have automatic systems that are like scanning your resumes.
Yep.
So making sure that it's, it's like a readable PDF.
That's the thing, that it's an applicant tracking system.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
And yeah, they try to pick up on keywords, and I guess in your field, Adobe, those kinds of language they would pick up on to see how many times you've mentioned it, where it's, if you've actually utilized it. I don't think having student CEO hurt you at all at the top of your resume. That's amazing.
Thanks. It felt like I had to put student on there to be a little more honest about
Sure.
it. But yeah.
But even still, like there aren't a lot of those in any industry. So that looks great.
But yeah, so that's what mine looked like. But
yeah, thank you.
sure.
I'm gonna offer you students one last chance to ask any questions. I love your tip about informational interviews. The last 2 evenings I've done presentations on those, and
Nice.
to have it come from you and also share some of the suggestions that you receive from those and how you benefit from that, I think is super helpful. And a lot of students might feel a little bit intimidated by asking for those, but I think once you've interacted with someone as professional as you are, but also as welcoming, it hopefully should be less intimidating.
Yeah.
To connect. So, well, Claire, thank you so much for your time.
Sure.
I don't know how you feel about.
You can
Okay.
send my email or anything, or you can find me on LinkedIn or whatever works for you.
You knew exactly where I was going with that. So yes, students, Claire is on LinkedIn. I'm not sure if that's how you connected with Mike originally or not, but I will share your email if students are interested. Students, please feel free to reach out to me for that. And thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate all your information, and we wish you all the best, and hopefully we will cross paths soon in the future.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Good to sort of be back.
Yeah. Come back anytime in person.
All right,
okay, thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, nice.
And that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oops,
amazing.
still recording. Sorry, now you have to trim it.
That's okay. I'm looking now for how to. Oh, there it is.